There was one team last year who was in the playoff mode from the very get-go, you could say. After losing to Northern Illinois, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish had to win out the rest of the season in order to get to the playoffs, and that's exactly what they did. And then when they got there, they capitalized, getting all the way to the national championship game. We're going to talk about where they go from here and where Marcus Freeman is exactly in the pecking order when it comes to Notre Dame fans and how they view him. Next, here on the College Huddle. And joining us now on the College Huddle, that is Mike from the Gyrish Talk. It is good to have you back with us, Mike, here on the College Huddle. Good day to you, fine sir.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. It's great to be back. I enjoyed being on your podcast last time. Obviously, I think anytime you're in the midst of a run to the national championship, I think vibes are going to be good. Obviously, it didn't end the way that we would have liked from our end, but still, it was still a heck of a season, and clearly, we're in that ramp up to the season. It's just the I wouldn't say the weather is starting to get cooler yet, but you can start to see that on the horizon a little bit. We're starting to talk about college football. We're talking about expectations. And for me, there's really nothing that I enjoy more than just starting to get amped up for an upcoming college football season.
Yeah, the week zero will be here before we know it. And this year, you guys don't have to go overseas to participate in the week zero matchup against
Yeah.
Navy like you guys did before. But that one's going to be Farmageddon. We'll get to that in another show for everybody here at the College Huddle. But please consider liking, subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. If you're a Notre Dame fan, a lot of you guys know me already from over at the OHIO podcast and hanging out at the Always Irish with John Kennedy. And I hope if you don't know Mike, that you're going to like this interview. Mike's a great guy. I've talked to him before, and really looking forward to diving into the offseason that was for Notre Dame and the season that will be. Mike, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, a little bit about Gyrish Talk, and where they can find you, man.
Yeah, so I'm a former student of Notre Dame. I've been a huge college football fan my entire life. I grew up in the South, so if you grow up in the South, it's similar to like growing up in Ohio. You just college football in general. It's just like in your veins basically. And then I actually grew up. I think I told you this. I grew up an Ohio State fan because my family is from Ohio. And then when I went to Notre Dame, it's just I just embraced the team immediately, and that became my ride or die team from that point forward. But since then, I follow college football extremely actively. My co-host was a good friend of mine from college. At one point, we just thought we're like, hey, we're spending so much time discussing college football, reading up on it, and both of us are both analytically minded guys. So we thought, well, what would be fun if we started a podcast where we, take all this time that we're already spending, add the analytics, and just see how it goes, see how we'll do mainly for friends and family, and if people like it, we'll continue doing it, and that's what we've been doing. We've leaned into the analytics, so it's stuff like like SP Plus. We look at a lot of pro football focused grades. Anything that kind of gives us some sort of analytical insight is something that we look at. Try to glean takeaways, anything like that. And then I would say one other aspect of our podcast is we try to be more of glass half full. I think there's certainly a lot of negativity on social media, a lot of negativity in the media towards athletes, and I think that's a more fair game for professionals. For college kids, they're really just kids, so we try to keep it a bit more positive. Now, granted, like the NIL component of all this is kind of changing the math on that a little bit. It's hard to say someone's just a kid, just a student if they're making millions and millions of dollars. But still, I think we try to err towards the side of being a bit more glass half full. Doesn't mean we're not diehard fans. I've certainly yelled at my TV. I've yelled at the refs many times. So I'm not to say that we don't do that. We're human. But that's our podcast in a nutshell. We've been doing it. It's been like we've done it a number of years now, and really enjoy it. You can find us at Gyrish_talk. That's our Twitter handle, and we also have a YouTube channel as well. And that's an area we're trying to expand. We're trying to really enhance our videos. We're adding graphs and images like that to help serve as points of reference when we're discussing certain topics. So I would encourage anyone who's interested in listening to us to check out our YouTube channel as well.
Yeah, please go do that, everybody. These are good dudes. I've enjoyed talking with them before and interacting with them, and really looking forward to his breakdown here of Notre Dame. All right, so you might have yelled at your TV, but the question is, have you ever yelled at Marcus Freeman yet? I almost feel like he is on the verge of getting sainthood before he passes away already. Like there's definitely a vibe amongst the Notre Dame fans who I interact with that they are all about Marcus Freeman, that they feel he is balled into the Notre Dame culture, the whole Catholic side of things, the
Yep.
school, every aspect of that, and they love it. And so I would love to get your opinion of Marcus Freeman, the coach, the man, and where you think he is as far as the pecking order here for Notre Dame fans when it comes to your current head coach.
For sure. You hit on a lot of it. I think since Marcus Freeman took over, right when he took over, there are questions about experience as a head coach. How is he actually going to be as an in game coach? How will he be as a developer? But in terms of the cultural aspects of Notre Dame, he pretty much checked every box. It's many of the things that you said. He just leaned into the university. Anytime there was an opportunity to speak up about the school or the team and say the right thing, he always said the right things. His enthusiasm is it's palpable. Like you can just sense it. It's very genuine when he's talking about the school. He, I mean, you mentioned the Catholic element of it. He converted to Catholicism, in his time at Notre Dame. I think that's something that certainly won over a lot of people with the Notre Dame community. A big time players coach. You can just tell the respect and affection that all of his players have for him. It's just I think it's a very refreshing change of pace versus our prior coach, Brian Kelly. And look, I think Brian Kelly did great things for Notre Dame. I think he kind of got us out of a rut where we were, really, really struggling to even just be a top 15 program in the country, let alone beyond that. So Brian Kelly, I think, stabilized it, but it always felt like he was kind of just there. It was just a job for him, right? It was just potentially a stepping stone, and that's exactly what happened because he jumped to LSU, and I think it kind of confirmed what a lot of Notre Dame fans suspected. Then you have Marcus Freeman come in, and he's someone who's just constantly praising the university, gushing about it. Says it's a perfect fit for his family, and anyone you talk to who's interacted with him, I've never heard anything negative about him. Everyone just says, the nicest things. Sounds like if you just bumped into him on the quad on Notre Dame campus, as busy as he is, he would, be able to take a moment to, to be friendly and actually have like a nice human moment. So, uh, yeah, I think you're exactly right. It's just he's embraced Notre Dame. Everyone like and the fan base has noticed and they've embraced him back. So about a perfect as fit as you can have. You mentioned if I was ready to yell at him at any point last year. I would say after the NIU game, I was not. I was probably at a point where I was texting my friends. I was like, all right, okay, we personally really like Marcus Freeman, culturally a great fit, but do we think he's the guy? Like this might be a moment where we're starting to question it a little bit. But then he turned around and responded as well as you possibly could have. Just won out from that point forward up until the national championship. So you combine the great cultural fit and then just the success on field that we saw, getting us to I would say our best moment, for Notre Dame since the Lou Holtz era. Clearly, that was clearly the highest. I would say the best season we've had, since a very long time. So you combine that, and I think Notre Dame fans are all in on him at this point. And it also helps that now we're seeing results in recruiting. Our recruiting classes are finally starting to tick up. We're actually getting 5 stars. So I'll maybe hold off on praising the recruiting class until it's signed and inked because I can think of many years in the past where we've had 5 star guys who just kind of like bolt at the last second. But it just feels different. It seems like everyone's locked in. It seems like Marcus Freeman, if there's a coach that he wants, he's able to get him. He's still Penn State's running back coach. It seems like this recruiting cycle, if he's wanted to recruit, he's generally been able to get them. And I just can't think of any moment as a Notre Dame fan where that's really been the case. It just seems like there's something special brewing right now in South Bend.
It, I'm assuming that the list is going to be very short after I ask this question, but which coaches in college football or the NFL for that matter would you be willing to trade Marcus Freeman for today if you knew they could come to Notre Dame?
Yeah, that is a tough question.
I'm sure it's a
'Cause
very short list,
yes, because he's like, I think, well, look, so someone like I can't really say Nick Saban because he's already retired. I think someone
right?
like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, I don't like, maybe like a Kirby Smart, right? But I don't is Kirby Smart as good of a fit culturally for Notre Dame as Marcus Freeman is? I think like someone like Ryan Day, I'm glad that he has finally kind of, won the respect that he deserved. Someone like that would Ryan Day would come in and he would certainly do, I think he would be very effective at Notre Dame. Would he resonate with the Notre Dame community as well as Marcus Freeman? It's hard to imagine. So yeah, I think you're right. It's a short list. I'm just thinking of coaches with national titles to their name. I think Dabo. Dabo. A lot of people might say that's an interesting one because I think even though he's won a couple titles, he's fallen out of favor a little bit. Some people are wondering whether he's keeping up with the times. Dabo, interestingly, whenever he has spoken about Notre Dame, he does seem like someone who actually kind of understands the school. It's just like whenever he's made comments, I'm like, okay, it seems like someone who's done his homework and someone who has like respect. I mean, it also helps that we've had a pretty back and forth series with them, so I think naturally there's going to be some respect. Someone like Dabo, look, I don't. These are all names where I wouldn't say that I would definitely trade, but they're names that I would consider. There's actually not really. I wouldn't say there's anyone off the top of my head that I would say right now I 100% would trade this coach for Marcus Freeman. It maybe Kirby Smart. It's just Notre Dame is such a tricky place to nail down. The culture is so unique. Even someone who has a tremendous amount of success, there's no guarantee that they're going to be able to do it at Notre Dame. I mean, I think like Urban Meyer's retired, but Urban Meyer at his peak, I think he obviously would have done really well at Notre Dame because he's someone who knew the school. Um, but at this point, he's been out of football for a little bit, and his tenure with the Jaguars that obviously didn't go too great. So
It didn't go too
yeah,
good, did
so
it?
kind of a little bit. I didn't give like one name. I didn't give a definite trade, but those are names that would be they would seem like reasonable like options.
Yeah, yeah. As an Ohio State fan, and I forgot to put my green screen up, so if I've offended everybody, sorry. I try to be very unbiased on the College Huddle as opposed to the OHIO podcast, the other show I have where I'm incredibly biased. Um, that being said, I am assuming, and I've said this multiple times, I'd love to get your opinion on this, Mike. Marcus Freeman is at the exact spot Ryan Day was at the exact time Ryan Day was in his tenure at Notre Dame compared to Ryan Day at Ohio State. Meaning this, Ryan Day inherited a very good program. He was a top-notch program, but he was never a head coach before. He ascended to the top very quickly and fell flat on his face when he got there. Alabama embarrassed him on the national championship level. He resetted himself, made the team under his identity a little bit more, and then in year number 6 he goes out and finally wins the national championship. If anything, Marcus Freeman might be slightly ahead of schedule than what Ryan Day was on that same timeline, because Marcus then has done it in year 3 where Ryan Day did it in year 2, but Marcus has already kind of put his signature on this program a little bit faster than what Ryan Day did following Urban Meyer in that era. And it feels like to me he's riding much more of a wave of momentum after the 2024 season where you come up short in the national championship game than what Ryan Day did in 2020 when we got blown out by Alabama in the national championship game. So that being said, I would love to get your opinion on that timeline thought that I've kind of correlated there, and then B, on top of that, I would love to get where you think like is this the most confident you've been that we can win a national championship in your young lifetime, Mike? Because I'm assuming you don't remember the last time you guys won a national championship. I do. I'm old. You're much younger than me. So is your confidence level the highest it's ever been as a Notre Dame fan?
Yeah, so I'll talk about like the first part of your question, just about like where Marcus Freeman is on his trajectory compared to like Ryan Day. That's actually a really interesting point of comparison. I hadn't thought about that before, but yeah, I think that's right. I think it's like with any first time head coach, even if it's one that you have a tremendous amount of confidence in, they're gonna take their lumps early, like Marcus Freeman certainly did. He did against Ohio State. I mean, he certainly when we played you guys, I mean, some of his coaching decisions were definitely called into question. Um, so I think I remember some of his first couple seasons. Like you could tell, like his players were really bought in. You could tell the culture was great. But then we'd have some lapses. We'd lose to like Marshall, right? We would there'd be some of these coaching decisions that you kind of question a little bit. He had I would say one of our early offensive coordinators, Jared Parker, was as well as he's hired, that was one hire that didn't seem to go very well. And since then, I think he's improved in all these areas. I think his hires have all been home runs. In the last like year and a half or so, stealing Denbrock uh, from LSU, that was a coup in many Notre Dame fans' eyes. Obviously, the Penn State running back coach as well. And then I think where he's developed even faster than I expected has been with his in-game coaching. There were moments in the Georgia game. I mean, I was just like stunned. He was like completely outsmarting Kirby Smart multiple times, and that was a big question mark for me coming into last season. Was how would he develop in game as a coach? And yeah, by the end of the year, I felt like from an X's and O's standpoint, from just a tactical standpoint, I felt like we had a pretty clear edge. So that gives me a lot of confidence because we know he has all this other stuff. We know he's very charismatic. We know he can get his players fired up. The one thing we'll have to watch this year is can we avoid those letdown performances? Uh, like we can't have another NIU this year. I think he's learned from it. We use it as a rallying point for the rest of the year. So yeah, I think his trajectory is ahead of. I think you're right. It might be a little bit ahead of where Ryan Day is. It's certainly ahead of where I expected. And then in terms of my confidence uh, for Notre Dame winning a national title, definitely yes. This is the highest it's ever been. If you asked me 5 years ago if I thought Notre Dame realistically could win a national title in the next 10 years, I probably would have said it's possible, but we're going to have some breaks. Like we're gonna have to get lucky with a quarterback. We're gonna have to have someone who's like a Trevor Lawrence come in and just elevate us to the level that Trevor Lawrence elevated Clemson. At this point, I feel like it's pretty realistic. I feel like I'm not going to say that we're definitely going to win a national title in the next 10 years, but if you told me that Notre Dame won a title in the next couple years and we beat some of the top teams in college football to do it, that would not be surprising to me. It just seems like everything in the program has been elevated. We're getting more highly touted recruits. We're effectively filling gaps in the transfer portal. If there's a big name, if there's a coach that Marcus Freeman thinks is a great fit, he's basically just kind of getting whatever he wants. And he's also getting the administration bought into a level that they haven't since Lou Holtz, that's another element with Notre Dame that I think a lot of times people don't fully appreciate. Brian Kelly did a solid job, I think, of getting the administration to kind of bend a little bit. But I would say they still held their ground more than they did when Lou Holtz was around. With Marcus Freeman, it seems like he's able to kind of get them to give him more leeway in the transfer portal, give him more leeway with recruits. Now they have to be fits for Notre Dame, but it seems like he's able to kind of get the university focused on football, maybe in a way that it hasn't been in maybe 30 years. So you put that all together, and it feels like we have a program that's on the verge of being a perennial top 3, top 5 program, with maybe even some upside, honestly. And to me, that's a spot that I don't think I would not have imagined if you told me 5 years ago that we were in that position, I don't know that I would have believed you. So I think this hire is so far it's gone about as well as it possibly could have. Still a lot more time, but a national title feels realistic, which is again not something that I would have expected at any other point in my Notre Dame fandom.
You mentioned quarterbacks. And so let's go there because it seems to be one of the biggest stories this offseason for a lot of programs, not just Notre Dame. A lot of programs are breaking in new quarterbacks this year or having quarterback competitions, and it's no different in South Bend, Indiana. Steve Angeli moves on to Syracuse. He was the other name that some had mentioned possibly to be in the mix for this year, and so it comes down to C.J. Carr and Kenny Minchie, if I'm not
Yep.
mistaken. And of course, I know C.J. Carr. He's the grandson of Coach Carr from the team that I don't want to mention, and it's okay because you don't like them either, and I think most people who
Yep.
are going to watch this don't like that school, so we'll be all right to say that. But where are we at as of August 10th as we record this? And who do you think's going to be the starting quarterback game one against Miami down in South Beach?
That's really the $1 million question, and it might literally be the $1 million question from an NIL standpoint. If whoever wins that starting spot, certainly, their profile grows quite a bit. I think, interestingly, going into fall camp, everyone pretty much just assumed it would be CJ Carr. I think basically the assumption was that if Angeli left, so if they opted to not go for the more experienced guy, not that Angeli had a ton of experience, but he certainly had more experience, was more proven in games, then that meant that they were likely going for the big time prospect CJ Carr. But so far, all reports out of camp, if you listen to the beat reporters, people who are close to the team, they're really insisting so far that it's a 50-50 battle between Carr and Minchie, which I think has surprised a lot of people. So I think, with that, I'll kind of give a little bit of a profile view of each of these guys. So CJ Carr, you mentioned, son of Lloyd Carr, which I think you guys are obviously bigger. You guys are obviously bigger, enemies with Michigan than we are. Well, okay, I should say that school up north. I got to correct myself right there. But we obviously don't like them. One of the big losses I think in Notre Dame's schedule has been that we don't play them regularly. That was one of my favorite games of the season. Actually, when I was a student at Notre Dame, I think I hated them more than USC. Honestly, they just kind of got under my skin. The fan base. You guys, I'm sure you guys have. We have similar opinions. The fan base is kind of arrogant, which is probably
You're
very
just
rich hearing that from a Notre
preaching
Dame
to the
fan.
choir, my friend. You
Yeah.
are preaching to the choir.
So it's a shame that we don't play them anymore, because it was a really good series. I hope it does resume at some point, but I think like that was a nice like feather in the cap for Marcus Freeman and crew. But CJ Carr, his profile, top 50 prospect, near not a 5-star, but kind of like sniffing 5-star status. The big thing with him is arm talent. So he did really well in his first spring game when he should have been a high school, still in high school. And then this past spring game, he had some just very, very impressive throws, like NFL type throws. In terms of mobility, he has some mobility. He's not, I wouldn't call him a dual threat, but he's someone who can definitely hurt you if you give him enough space. Obviously, not the runner that Riley Leonard is, but yeah, the big thing with him is accuracy. He's got a strong arm, not a cannon, but a strong arm. And the thing with him is he's just someone that you would hope could elevate the passing game significantly. And then Kenny Minchie, on the other hand, it's not like he wasn't highly touted. He was roughly around a top 150 prospect, so pretty well regarded. The reason I think that he gets kind of has gotten lost in the shuffle occasionally, is that he was in a recruiting class where Notre Dame fans thought that we were a lock to get a top 5 overall quarterback, Dante Moore, and then he ended up not coming to Notre Dame, and then Minchie was kind of the person that we sort of settled with. I hate saying that because he is a highly touted prospect. So I think for a lot of people, he was a bit of a consolation prize, and he's kind of always been dismissed. But the thing with him is he's a bit more mobile. I don't want to say that's a bit misleading when I say he's mobile. He's not like a Riley Leonard dual threat. He's not someone who's going to burn you, but he has more mobility. He's someone who, when the play breaks down, he can be a little bit more creative. Probably someone more along the lines of like a Ian Book in terms of mobility. And Ian Book was, to be fair, he was pretty mobile. So, and when I talk about Carr's arm talent, that's not to say that Minchie doesn't have arm talent, because he does. So it's kind of like, it's not like a pocket passer versus a dual threat. It's two guys that are, they both have arm talent and they both have some ability. It's just each of them kind of leans a certain way. And like I said, I think people were expecting Carr, being the more highly touted guy, to eventually take over. It hasn't happened yet. I think if you were to insist, if you were to like put a gun to the head of like the people on the beat and say, okay, but who do you really think is actually going to end up winning? I think most people would probably still say Carr. But look, if Minchie ends up winning the job outright, I mean, that might just say that he's been performing exceptionally well. Because I think since Carr has come in, like the staff and everybody has been very high on him, and that would tell you that Minchie probably just played so well that he just pretty much gave him no choice but to give him the job.
Well, whichever quarterback it's going to be, they're going to be thrown in the fire game number one. Notre Dame's schedule in 2025 is it is without a shadow of a doubt the most difficult 1-2 punch in weeks 1-2 out there in college football. No one has a 1-2 week 1 week 2 gauntlet, if you will, like Notre Dame does. And so let's start with game number 1. You're on the road in South Beach, over the down there in Hard Rock Stadium, I guess is what they're calling it these days. This is obviously another school that holds some form of rivalry with Notre Dame. A lot do. But this one goes back to, I guess you could say, the Lou Holtz era, when you had the Catholics versus Convicts series that has now turned into something that gets mentioned every single time Miami and Notre Dame play. And this is a Miami team who has one of the most, I guess you could say, veteran quarterbacks in college football. Left Georgia, went down to South Beach, then lost his girlfriend and lost his hot rod. I digress. We'll see how he bounces back from his arm injury. Uh, but I feel like this game is really, really important for both teams. Um, it's not going to destroy the season for either school. You can still lose this game and make the college football playoff easily, easily. But momentum is a very real thing, especially starting off early in the season. So twofold. Number one, speak to your personal feelings towards Miami as a rival. And then two, what does this game mean to you, in your opinion, for the season for Notre Dame in 2025?
As a rival, I think it's fun when both teams are good and they're playing each other. Since I've been a fan, we've tended to have their number. It's not the series that it was in the late '80s with Johnson and Holtz, where Lou Holtz said that he wanted them to. I think the
Leave them
quote
for
is
me, boys.
exactly. Yeah. Although Lou Holtz is like, I don't know what the heck I was talking about. Like Johnson was like a tremendous athlete. He was like a Hall of Fame tight end. And you look at Lou Holtz, he's like, 5'7". He's like, he would have completely like, annihilated me. But yeah, it's, I think it's like when both teams are good, like you can see some of that bad blood pop up again. I think most notably we had a game in 2017 against them. And that was a really good Notre Dame team. We went to Miami, great offensive line, and Miami just it's to me that's one of those inexplicable Notre Dame losses that I can't really put my finger on why it happened, because they just kind of like knocked our teeth in, blew us out. And then it's not like Miami was great that year. They were good, but I would still contend that Notre Dame was the better team that year. So, but when that game was happening, I remember on social media there would be videos of Miami fans just like throwing stuff at Notre Dame fans. There were like fights like outside the concession stands. When I actually went to the national championship in 2012, Notre Dame Bama, I interestingly, the people that I was getting heckled from the most was not Alabama fans. It was just Miami fans that were in the area. It seemed like they just came out of the woodwork and were just using any opportunity to just insult some Notre Dame fans. So like there is like bad blood that can pop up again if both of these teams are good. So maybe we'll see some of that. But I would say in terms of rivalries, like the ones that really get my attention the most, it's always going to be USC. That school up north, if we're playing them more, they would be up there too. Yeah, Clemson's kind of becoming it looks like they're becoming more and more a rival. So I'd say Miami is not one that's kind of been top of my radar lately, but maybe we can get back into that. And it sounds like we're going to be scheduling them more. And then moving to the other part of your question in terms of how I think about Miami, how do I evaluate Miami this year, and what do I think of Notre Dame's chances? I it's interesting. Miami's a very interesting case this year. Their offense was one of the best in the country last year. Obviously, they lost Cam Ward, who went top of the draft. They bring in Carson Beck, who at times had been talked about as like a potential first round pick. He played himself out of it. Really, the big thing with him is when the pressure is the highest and when the lights have been brightest, he has tended not to perform at the same level. And he had a really tough injury, so it's not like he's had as much time as you would like for him to get fully ramped up. Miami lost most of their pass catchers. So there's a lot of turnover on that offense. They have a couple good backs. They have a few guys coming back on the offensive line, but I think this is an offense. I think Miami's offense is one that by the end of the year, yeah, they could be rolling. Maybe Beck still kind of cracks under pressure a little bit, but game one, I think that's going to be really tough for them. I think there's just too many moving pieces. I think I think on defense was a struggle for them last year. I think they brought in a new defensive coordinator. I think similarly there, it's just there's just going to be a lot of things that are going to be tough to figure out by game one. And Notre Dame, we certainly have things that we got to figure out too. Most notably at quarterback. That's a tough environment to go in game one. But I think if you look at our running game, our offensive line, I think our defense should still be really stout. I think our defense is one that should put a lot of pressure on Carson Beck. And those situations I was talking about where Carson Beck tends to make bad decisions, where he tends to make these mistakes, I think our defense is one that should be pretty tailor made to do that. So I don't want to dismiss Miami. I think they have potential to be a good team next year, but there is a lot of volatility in my mind. It could go a lot of different ways, and so I think if I look at initial advanced stats, I think it's saying that Notre Dame should be favored by a few points. I think look, I would take Notre Dame in that. I feel like we have volatility. There's uncertainty at quarterback, but I feel like I feel like we're the better team, and I feel like we have some uncertainty, but I feel like Miami has even more.
Last season, you started on the road as well. You went down the College Station there, and you defeated Texas A&M. And now you return the favor after a short bye week. In game number two, you welcome them into South Bend. This is year number two under Elko. Obviously, you jumped out on them year number one, first year starting his program up there, and for the Aggies. Now he comes in. Is this the second most difficult game on your schedule?
Yeah, so I think the first two games are clearly the two toughest games. You could debate whether it's Miami or Texas A&M. I think Miami. I think because Miami's on the road, I'll give that one the edge in terms of the most difficult. I think this is definitely. I think this is our second most challenging game. I think, Marcel Reed is a quarterback who had a lot of flashes of potential, a bit inconsistent, but if he continues to develop someone who could elevate their offense to another level. And Texas A&M had some solid offensive outputs in the SEC last year. Their running game is effective, and it's their defense was a bit disappointing last year. Elko has tended to, I think, when he puts his imprint on defenses, you tend to see those defense. I mean, we saw it at Notre Dame. He was a defensive coordinator at Notre Dame. He did a fantastic job as a Notre Dame defensive coordinator. So I think I tend to buy into Mike Elko as a coach. I've always been very high on him. I expect their defense to improve, but I think, look, we beat them last year. They were susceptible to giving up some big runs. I don't know that they're totally going to be able to fix that. And if our running game was able to gash them last year, I think we're going to be even better at that this year with a better offensive line. And Jeremiah Love getting, another year of development to get even stronger and faster. So having him at home is big. I think it's certainly a game where if we do not bring our A game, if we're not playing our best game, they'll definitely beat us. But it's one where I think Freeman will have the guys fired up, and I have Notre Dame winning this one. It's a big game, and Marcus Freeman he's tended to have us ready for the big games against premier opponents.
Purdue at home. We'll skip over that one. On the road, your fourth game, going down there to Little Rock, playing Arkansas there. Fayetteville. Sorry, not Little Rock. Fayetteville.
Yeah.
Is this the trap game on the schedule?
Yeah, it's I don't even view Arkansas necessarily as a trap game because to me you could debate what our third toughest game is. Maybe it's USC. I I tend to put Arkansas as maybe our third toughest game because we're on, as you mentioned, we're on the road. Will not be an easy venue to play in. And look, Arkansas, they're not great. They've been a bit disappointing, but they're a solid team. You look at the advanced metrics, they're a team that can definitely, if you don't bring your A game, yeah, they definitely could beat you. So in my mind, yeah, it depends how you want to classify it. I kind of view them as like they're on my radar enough to where I don't view them as a trap game. But if you're kind of like to categorize the schedules, our first two games and everything else is something that where we should be heavily favored to win, then you could call it a trap game. But yeah, I think Arkansas is more than capable of pulling off a win against us if we are, if we kind of walk into Fayetteville and we're a little bit sleepy.
The Blue Turf Monsters, Boise State, comes in to South Bend. This is interesting. Boise State made the college football playoff last year. There are some who say that they're in the driver's seat to probably be the G5, although I think it might be G6 now since the Pac-12 is claiming to be a conference still. Um, they're the ones again that a lot of people think have the best chance to get out of the G5 back into the college football playoff again. They have stepped up before and taken down giant programs before. Looking at you, Oklahoma. So they're not going to walk into South Bend feeling overwhelmed or intimidated. And this is one of those games if I was a Notre Dame fan where I'm like, we better not overlook these guys, because if we play them like we did a Marshall or a Northern Illinois, NIU, not only will they beat us, they might embarrass us.
Yeah.
Am I thinking the right way here?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit hesitant to kind of even put them in that bucket of like NIU and like Marshall, just because
They're
Boise is a
not on the same. They're much
yeah,
better than that. Yes, a
right,
hundred
right.
percent agree with you.
But I mean, look, they lost the best running back in the country last year, and yeah, look, I think they probably take a step down. I would imagine you have to when you just lose you lose production like that. I Notre Dame, interestingly, they have pegged this as a green out game. So this is
Oh,
one where I guess we're the fans are supposed to wear green. I think the players are going to wear green jerseys. I think so. If you ask Notre Dame fans historically about those green out games, you might get some mixed opinions, because I think the pre Brian Kelly, maybe even early in Brian Kelly's tenure, there seemed to be a perception that whenever we would do that, the team would kind of like the jerseys were basically cursed. Like the team would just not play well when they had them on. But that really hasn't been the case in the last, like, I would say, like 10ish years or so. So I think doing that, I think when Freeman is agreeing to do that to him, he's saying, we're not overlooking you guys. Like we're in fact we're coordinating our green out game when you're in town. That should just speak for itself in terms of how seriously we take this weekend.
there you go. Um, we're going to skip over NC State, although I do think NC State is a good program, but they're not on the level of Notre Dame. Now let's talk USC. It's your big rival. USC's been very vocal about ending the series since they've been in the Big Ten, and there's a lot of talk about the Big Ten and SEC becoming basically partners in one non-conference game every year. And SC is obviously trying to make the college football playoff, and there's talk. Well, why would we put ourselves at a disadvantage by having to play a team like Notre Dame every single year in the non-conference schedule, when the conference that we play with, the 9 games that we play in that conference, are good enough to make up the difference to where if you win 10 games, you're probably in. And that's just the reality of it. I would love your opinion on that, being a Notre Dame fan, number one. And number two, is there some extra, I guess you could say, butter that's being spread on that bread because of all of this from USC, the vocalization of it from Lincoln and the rest of the SC crowd, to make sure that you really drive home a point in this game.
Yeah. So this series, one of the longest running rivalries in all of sports. It's tended to, I would say, like it's tended to swing from side to side. So you look at, I mean, just recently. So oh, it's fine. I say recent. This isn't even recent anymore. But the Pete Carroll era, that USC had our number for years and years and years, right? And then after that era ended, Brian Kelly was able to kind of, essentially right the ship. And since then, it's been very one sided in Notre Dame's favor. But you look at the history of the series, and that's how it's tended to go. And when the series is tilting towards one team, that team tends to be the one that is more in the driver's seat for national title contention. So I think it's just in Notre Dame fans, it's kind of like rich that they're discussing this when the series is kind of swung in our favor. I think a lot of the Notre Dame fan base tends to think that if we were the program that was down and USC was the one that was up, like they wouldn't even be talking about this at all. I certainly understand what Lincoln Riley is saying about, you know, you don't want to like kill yourself with an overly tough schedule. I think, yeah, this is a bit of an aside, but I think something the college football playoff committee could probably do a bit of a better job with is rewarding strength of schedule, right? I think that they should incentivize teams to play more challenging games. And that's something that you continually like when they're discussing format changes. That's a point that's continually brought up. So I think, not to go too off topic here, but I think if that's something they can rectify, then hopefully that just makes this a point that's not even, it doesn't even matter anymore. USC, from their standpoint, would view Notre Dame as, a challenging game that, they're not going to get dinged for too much if they lose. And if they win, it's a big, big feather in their cap essentially. But I think, yeah, and then to get to the second part of your question, I think it definitely is riling Notre Dame fans up. Certainly, it's riling me up. I think a lot of USC fans honestly are not happy about it either. There's a lot of tradition. There's a lot of, I mean, I live in Southern California, so I know a lot of USC grads, and this is really the game that they care about the most. It's the game that if USC is having a bad season, some of them may not really pay attention most of the year, but this is the one game that they pay attention to. It's the one game where if it's at USC, like they'll go to campus and tailgate. So I think for a lot of the USC alums, they're not happy about it either. I think for Notre Dame, we definitely kind of feel like they're trying to kind of avoid, we kind of feel like they're kind of trying to avoid some tough competition, and they're picking a moment when they're down a little bit to kind of, kind of chicken out, I guess would be what it is in terms of like if it's raising the stakes. Like definitely, I think if you have a rival who's kind of looking to cut loose, there would be nothing more satisfying than completely blowing them out. And then if they started talking about wanting to leave, we'll be like, well, of course you guys don't want to play us anymore because you're going to lose by 40 points every year. So I think there's an element of that. I think now look, you never really know how teams are going to respond. Like USC might, like the players. It's not like the players are deciding any of this. Like they could be getting fired up on their end and saying, hey, like we're not afraid of Notre Dame. So, but I think just speaking for the Notre Dame side, I think everyone is, pretty excited to get a crack at USC this year and hopefully put an exclamation mark on, if they talk about leaving the series, like we'll be like, yeah, well, it's because we just beat you guys by 40 points.
3 of the last 5 are on the road. No one jumps off the screen here as being a top 25 team that, or the top 15 team that might be competing for a college football playoff. Boston College is considered a rival. You got Stanford in there considered a rival as well. I look at these 5 games and I think obviously Notre Dame is going to be favored, probably highly favored in all 5. Which one of those games causes you to pause the most and say, we need to be careful here?
Yeah, so the trap game in my mind, you'd mentioned Arkansas, and I had kind of mentioned that they were just, they were on my radar enough to where they weren't a trap game. The trap game in my mind is Pitt. Pitt is a program that has just perennially kind of been a thorn in our side. Narduzzi just absolutely, I think if you were to like find people who hate Notre Dame, like he might be the top of the list. Like,
I think that guy hates everything. I'm just going to be straight
that's
up
true.
honest.
That's true. That is actually a good point. So maybe, yeah, I feel like you talk to any fan base and they're like, yeah, Narduzzi just like, he hates us. And it's like, oh, but why would he hate? It's like, why would he hate Cal? And it's like, I don't know. He just hates everybody. But it seems like they always seem to punch above their weight against us. I can think of so many games over the years where that's been the case. And one other element to this is, so we have Navy the week before, and Navy, look, Navy is a team that we should definitely beat, and I think our defense has been uh, effective against the option under Marcus Freeman's tenure. One tricky thing with the option though is that when you have that week of prep for it, you basically are not practicing like your traditional defense that you'd be practicing. So there's a theory among a lot of Notre Dame fans that there's a bit of a Navy hangover. So even if you beat Navy, it's like that week where you have to just completely focus on a non-traditional offense can throw your defense's game off in the next game. And there have been moments in the past where I've noticed a bit of that. I think the better Notre Dame teams tend to avoid that, but it's certainly something to consider. And then with Pitt, yeah, we're also on the road. So if you're looking at a game where Notre Dame underperforms, To me, like the formula of it's the week after Navy, it's on the road against Pitt, a team that for whatever reason just always seems to kind of up their game, and one that kind of tends to hang around. You throw in the Narduzzi factor. Yeah, he seems like he might hate everyone, but he certainly hates Notre Dame too. That they're definitely a program that he hates. You kind of add all that together, and it seems like that could be one where Notre Dame, if we get off to a slow start, maybe it's getting a little bit stressful late in the game. So that would be the one that I would kind of hone in on a bit. I think Notre Dame's clearly much better than Pitt. I think if we show up, like we should handle business. But there's some elements here where I could see us being off our game a little bit if you had to pick a spot in the schedule.
All right, it's time for you to kind of give us some direction on where you're thinking at in your mind as far as ceiling and floor. Give me your worst case scenario, basement floor, everything goes wrong, but this is still the record we would have. And then give me your best case scenario ceiling for the season.
Yeah, so I think this is a high floor squad. So the biggest uncertainty is at quarterback, and if we get very poor quarterback play, we can still really lean into our run game on offense. We have I think we have the best running back room in the country. Jeremiah Love is the number one running back in my opinion. I think the room is number one as well. Some people would say maybe it's Penn State. So I think that's an area that we could lean on even if the quarterback play is not what we need it to be. I think that gives me some level of confidence that like the floor won't completely everything's not going to completely cave in. I think it's I think it's worst case. It's hard to imagine our offense being much worse than a top 20, top 25 offense. On defense, we've just been so consistent. I think the one area maybe you would kind of point to is that we have Chris Ash coming in, and I'm optimistic about the hire. But anytime you bring in a new defensive coordinator, there's some uncertainty there. We lost some major production on defensive as well, but I think we're pretty well suited to fill those gaps. So if we have a drop off and it's like a top 25 ish offense, and our defense slips to top 15, that's kind of like where you get to like maybe as opposed to a top 5 team, we're maybe hovering around like top 20 ish or something like that. And I could see a scenario like that where maybe like 9-3. I think our schedule just is I think it's just like it's hard to imagine us dropping too many of these games. In terms of the ceiling and like what I think would actually happen, I mentioned like I think we're going to win the first 2 games. I'm optimistic about them. I think I mentioned for Miami they have a lot going on. They might be a much better team by the end of the year, but I think we'll be able to take care of business that first week. I like the fact that we have Texas A&M at home, and I think we're better. And my co-host and I did some math, just using betting odds and things like that. And if we win the first 2 games, like our odds of going undefeated are around like 70%. So that just kind of tells you, the degree to which, we should have an edge against most of these teams. So I'm not going to say that we go undefeated, but I would say maybe if I had to predict, I'd say 11-1. I think we drop a stupid game somewhere just because we've tended to do that. And it's really hard to go undefeated. Even like there've been some great Ohio State teams over the years that inexplicably have a loss somewhere.
Hmm.
And I think Notre Dame, I think we're susceptible to that as well. So I think we win the first 2 games, and then I think at that point you can kind of, I don't want to say just lock us in for the playoff, because uh, I could very well eat my words if we drop some stupid game somewhere. But I think odds are that is what would happen, and maybe we drop a stupid game somewhere.
All right, so 9-3 floor, 12-0 ceiling with a prediction of 11-1. I think that sounds fair, Mike. I'm not going to lie. I think that sounds exactly where I probably would put you guys too, in all honesty. Um, I think Notre Dame is definitely going to go back to the college football playoff. I'm making that prediction. I think that, and one of the reasons why I think that, and you alluded to it, is Jeremiah Love. And so my final question here for you is this: is Jeremiah Love a Heisman candidate in your mind?
Yeah, so that's a question I've been getting a lot. I think he is, but I think you have to keep in context how difficult it is for a running back to actually win the Heisman. So with Love, you look at his stats; he averaged 6.9 yards per attempt. That definitely is a stat that stacks up very well against prior running backs who have been in contention for a Heisman. 17 touchdowns. The thing that works against him it's interesting because it works against him, but it also, I think, for his future as a football player, it's not a bad thing necessarily. It's that he just doesn't get as many, like, the raw volume of carries that
Yeah.
these Heisman contenders had. He had about 160 carries last year, and even with that, he was dinged up near the end, right? Like, he was not definitely not 100% against Penn State and Ohio State. Still played, was still effective, but definitely was not 100%. Part of that is that our number two back, Jadarian Price, also one of the best running backs in the country. He averaged over 6 yards per attempt too. So when you have a running back room like that, Marcus Freeman is someone who is going to want to spread the carries around a little bit, save these guys from wearing down too much, so that they can be effective if we get into a stretch run in the playoffs. So to me, I think that that's what the challenge would be, is that he just is not going to get the raw yardage that he needs. Now, I would say one area, maybe if we see a huge jump in his effectiveness in the passing game, maybe that's where he could start to work in a little bit. But there would have to be like a huge jump. Like, I would be stunned if he was, putting up like Christian McCaffrey type numbers. I don't think he's that profile of a player in the receiving game. So I would say dark horse. To me, he's a dark horse candidate, unless something changes with the offensive approach where we're just going to feed him the ball twice as much as we did last year. I'd be surprised if he was like truly, like one of the top two guys to win the Heisman.
If I were to go to South Bend, Indiana incognito and try to fit in with the Irish fans, is it simply just putting on some green and saying "Go Irish" to everybody? Would I be able to get away with that if I did that?
We're a pretty easy group. That's kind of the complaint with the Notre Dame fan base, is that we're a little too welcoming. We're a little too friendly.
I don't think that
Uh,
that's a bad thing at all. I really don't. Like I love Nebraska fans because that's who they are, man.
yeah,
Like you go to Lincoln and they're like, "Hey man, we're glad you came." It's like, and
yeah,
then you go to some of the other schools. You go to Ann Arbor and people are ready to fight you. So it's I
yeah.
would
I
much
mean,
rather go to Lincoln, Nebraska than Ann Arbor, Michigan. That's for sure.
right. Well, it is at the same time, it is something that we take pride in. It's like, hey, we
Yeah.
try to be respectful. We try to, if there's a fan base that's visiting, like, stop by the tailgate. Hey, we'll give you a beer. We'll make you a brat. Right. There, sometimes people get frustrated, is like how that translates to like literally like crowd noise in the stadium. Because I've certainly been in many games, and like me and my co-host will be like yelling or something, and like there'll be someone behind us like, hey, quiet down, like I'm trying to, like, I'm trying to have like a nice peaceful like game day experience. It's like, okay, well, this definitely is not happening in Death Valley in Baton Rouge. um but yeah, it's funny you mentioned some of these other schools. Like one of my best friends in college, he went up to Ann Arbor, and I think we lost. Like, it was a pretty disappointing game. And he said, as he was walking out, like, the fans were just pelting him with beers, basically. And so it's like, if I had a reason to not like them already, that just kind of like put it over the edge. And I would say, like, when I was in Georgia, I went to Athens. I went to our game there. Fans were generally pretty nice, but after I was leaving the stadium, I had a bunch of fans barking at me, which
Oh yeah, they do. They like to do that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, they literally had a guy. He was prone. He was on all fours, and he was like crawling towards me like a dog, like barking. I mean, I actually thought it was pretty entertaining. But yeah, you're not gonna see that in South Bend. So yeah, I think your strategy: you wear green, say "Go Irish," just bring good vibes, which you will. I think that's all you need.
Yeah, I tend to get along with the Notre Dame fans really, really well. So I think I could probably pull that off. Mike, this has been a pleasure, my man. Tell everybody one more time where they can catch you and your co-host at on Gyrish Talk.
Yeah, so you can catch us. So at Gyrish Talk, Gyrish_talk. You can see it in my name at the bottom of the screen, and we have a YouTube channel, exact same name. In terms of the podcast, it's on whatever service you use. We're on Spotify, we're on Apple, we're on Podbean. So whichever one you use, we're on it, and you can find us on there.
Thank you so much, Mike. Again, please like, share, subscribe, everybody. We appreciate Mike joining us from Gyrish Talk here to talk a little Notre Dame here on the College Huddle. Let us know what you think about what we think down in the comment section below. Give me your prediction this year for the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Love to know what you think. Are you on Mike's wavelength that 11-1 is probably what Notre Dame will end up being in 2025. I'd love to know. And if you are a Notre Dame fan, what do you think about Marcus Freeman? I'd love to get your impression of Marcus Freeman going into year number, what is this, 4? I think year number 4 for Marcus already, I believe,
Yeah,
if I'm not
yeah, because year
mistaken.
3,
So
yeah, they kept calling out that, like, year 3 is a notable year for Notre Dame head coaches, and so he made the national title in year 3, so, yeah,
there you
so this is
go.
year 4. Yeah.
Excellent. All right, guys. Thank you so much once again. We appreciate all of you. Till next time, you all know what we do, like what we do here on the College Huddle. This is another reason why I should have had my green screen up, because I'm about to say "Go Irish" to go on in the show here with a bunch of Buckeye stuff. But Mike, I do appreciate you. So in honor of you and all the Notre Dame fans who are watching this, have a great season, everybody. Go Irish.
Go Irish. Appreciate it.